Welcome to this gathering hosted by the Unitarian Universalist Church of Bowling Green. Whether you are here in person or online, we are so glad that you are joining us today. My name is Michelle Steiner, and I'll be your service associate. Just a small reminder, if you wouldn't mind, please putting your cell phone to silent so that we may be present together. We are a welcoming congregation. Whoever you are, however you identify, wherever you come from, and whoever you love, you are welcome here. Our Sunday services are different each week so that we can honor and learn from a wide array of traditions and beliefs. Today, our speaker is our very own Laura McGee. As part of her individual search for truth and meaning at the UU Church of Bowling Green, Laura McGee learned about the ideas of the Buddhist monk, peacemaker, and prolific author Thich Nhat Hanh. Join with Laura as she shares her journey to greater mindfulness and happiness during retreats at Magnolia Grove Monastery in Mississippi, part of Thich Nhat Hanh's worldwide network of monasteries. Though we each walk our own path here in this place, on the land of the Osage, the Cherokee, the Shawnee, and the Yuchi. And now at this time, we journey together as one community. For Unitarian Universalists, the flaming chalice is a symbol of the light of learning and the love of our community. This morning, our chalice will be lit by James Miller. As our congregation's chalice is lit, please light your own chalice at home. And join us in singing hymn number 362, Rise Up, O Flame. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glowing, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. This morning, Jürgen will give our opening reading.
Peggy Rowe Ward is co-director of the Lotus Institute in Ohio. Here, she remembers an encounter with Thich Nhat Hanh that was very meaningful to her. As many of his students did, she refers to him here as Thai. Thai didn't speak about peace. He was peace. He didn't speak about contentment. He radiated contentment. He didn't speak about love. He embodied love. To be in his presence was a tangible, visceral experience of love. Once Thai's attendant invited us to tea with Thai. She said there would also be a movie star and his family who wanted to meet him. We were served tea and sat in silence for some time until Thai indicated that it was time to speak. This gentleman said that he had success, fame, recognition, and a beautiful family, yet he realized he wasn't happy. Thai nodded his head and sipped his tea. And then he asked, "Have you ever watched your children sleeping?" "Yes," he said. "I love to watch them sleep. They are so beautiful." Thai then said, "Yes, they are so beautiful. Sit with this."
Our first hymn today is number 183, The Winds of Change Forever Blown. Please stand if you're willing and able. We will now have a few moments for meditation, reflection, and prayer. The singing bowl will lead us into silence. After the silence, you're invited to join in the song Spirit of Life. The words will be on the screen. As mentioned earlier, Unitarian Universalists have a wide array of beliefs, and the speakers at our Sunday services come from many traditions. Here to share her own thoughts today is Laura McGee. Laura holds a doctorate in German language and literature from the University of Washington in Seattle. She taught German at Western Kentucky University for 24 years and headed the Department of Modern Languages for 11 of those. She is currently an artist, writer, consultant, world traveler, and all-around happy person. I present Laura.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Thank you all for inviting me to speak again today. I spoke in February on my One Wild and Precious Life, which is part of my search for a more meaningful life with the support of this congregation. And my talk today is in a similar vein, but on a completely different subject. This talk is about many things. It is about happiness, mindfulness. It is about more than one journey to the monastery, one of the monasteries in the network created by Thich Nhat Hanh. And it is about the man himself and his contributions to the world and his legacy. But most of all, it is about my journey. It is about my search for perspectives and practices that help me live my most full life in this world. I need to tell you that I am not an expert on Buddhism. Therefore, I apologize in advance to those who know more about this topic than I do. This is my journey. This is the story of my discovery, carefully presented for you to help you begin to discover if there is something useful here for you in your life. It is the kind of thing I would want when I show up here on Sunday mornings. For this reason, I've prepared this talk to assume no previous knowledge of the subject. So if you know nothing about these topics, relax. This is for you. You will go on this journey with me. If you are an expert already, an expert on Buddhism or an expert on Thich Nhat Hanh, this is your opportunity to practice your mindfulness. When I talk about things you already know, resist the temptation to begin making your shopping list for Thanksgiving or trying to figure out what to buy for Christmas for that picky niece. Just stop your monkey mind and be present. And to all of you, I invite you to truly listen with a mind that is not already full of stuff. You might learn something new. So, mindfulness allows you to live deeply in every moment that is given to you to live. As I begin today, I want to draw your attention to our 7 principles, the 7 principles of Unitarian Universalism. We're not a denomination that has really precise creeds that we recite together every Sunday, but rather it's things like the 7 principles that guide what all of us believe and the way we want to live, while allowing a tremendous amount of freedom and autonomy in how we interpret those individually. Among the 7 principles here, in particular, you'll find number 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Also number 6 and 7 having to do with community, with peace, and with the interdependent web of all existence. So you'll find those themes showing up in my talk today. I first encountered the teachings of Thich Nhat Hanh right here in this room. There was a small group that met for a kind of contemplative service before the regular service. We read the book Teachings on Love. We read it bit by bit. This book on the left, Teachings of Love, is a wonderful book. We read passages and we kind of meditated and we responded in a quiet, thoughtful way. This congregation has a number of different small special interest groups that read things together and learn together. If that's of interest to you, talk to people here. Find out about a group or create such a group. It was very valuable to me. Teachings on Love is not Thich Nhat Hanh's only book. In fact, he is the author of more than 100 books. The Miracle of Mindfulness is one, an early book of his that made a huge splash. So, let me tell you a little bit about Thich Nhat Hanh. He was born in 1926 in Vietnam, and he began training as a novice monk at the age of 16. As a novice monk, he learned to bring mindfulness to every task. And when you visit the monastery today, you do that as well. So washing dishes or walking, the simplest things you do, you try to do them mindfully. As a young person growing up in Vietnam, Thich Nhat Hanh witnessed the injustice and violence of the French colonial rule. Many monks responded by turning to Marxism. Thich Nhat Hanh responded by turning to socially conscious Buddhism. That means he took action, he got engaged, he helped assemble groups that responded to the plight of the boat people trying to leave Vietnam, and that type of thing. Even in his 20s, he began writing books. He was the editor of a very important journal of Buddhism. And he took a solid position against the war in Vietnam. He espoused a kind of socially engaged Buddhism as he acted and spoke in the world and as he engaged others in becoming active. He went on a speaking tour of 19 countries, speaking in support of peace and against war. While in the United States on this speaking tour, he spoke so vehemently against ending the war in Vietnam that his home country said, "You are not welcome to return." And so began 39 years in exile. He was also acquainted with Martin Luther King, who nominated him for the Nobel Peace Prize. And that's who you see here. So you can see the young monk together with Martin Luther King. After being exiled from his home country, he went to Paris. And sometime after that, in 1982, he bought a farm in France. I think it's in the south of France. And he began the first in a worldwide network of monastic-led mindfulness centers. So the farm he bought in France is now called Plum Village, and it's one of the biggest. The really cool thing, and what I'll also share with you today, is that one of the retreat centers in his network is just a 5-hour drive from here, and that is Magnolia Grove. And I visited there a total of 3 different times. So I'll be telling you about what it's like to go on a retreat, a weekend retreat at Magnolia Grove. In a Dharma talk is like a teaching or a lesson from a Buddhist master. In a Dharma talk called How to Water the Seeds of Happiness, Thich Nhat Hanh said, "All of us have the capacity to be happy. We have the seeds of compassion, of understanding, and of love in us. We all have many good seeds of happiness and joy. Yet we also have the habit of running in us. We are running towards something." And he's talking about in our minds. Our minds are running, running, running. We think happiness is in the future, and we fail to see that it can be in the here and now if we can slow or stop the running restlessness of our minds. That's part of what the practice of mindfulness is about. And I say practice because it's not something like you have this aha moment and all of a sudden your mind stops running. No, it's the way human beings are programmed. Our minds are running all the time. I'm sure it's probably happened to you that you've driven somewhere in the car and you arrived at your destination and all of a sudden you realized you saw nothing along the way. Your mind was just running through this or that it ran through 1,000 times before. Yeah, and our minds do that. Maybe you've seen the bumper sticker, "You are not your thoughts." Right? What is in our heads, what is happening in our brains at any given moment is not necessarily who we are. So this also is about what mindfulness is about. It's about choosing more intentionality, more agency, more mindfulness about what's in our heads so that we can focus on specific things and not on others. This line of thinking also believes not all problems can be solved by the conscious mind. In Western thought, we often turn to the conscious mind, by that I mean like rational thinking, to solve problems. The idea here is that something other than conscious, rational thought can be valuable in our lives, and we can access that through the practice of mindfulness. In addition, we as human beings tend to develop what Thich Nhat Hanh calls habit energies. And I'm going to try to put this in the simplest terms to make it accessible for you in this moment. In doing that, I'm leaving a ton of stuff out. But be with me for a moment. So maybe something has triggered us and it makes us feel angry. Maybe we are triggered every time that thing happens and we get angry. Maybe we're thinking again and again about something that upset us, and it goes round and round and round. It's like we begin to run a tight neural path in our brains that repeats and repeats. Maybe you, in thinking about your own thinking, know that you've been doing some of that. Yeah? The question is, how can we stop this? We can practice mindfulness to get in touch with appropriate attention, to stop our thinking, and to enjoy the feeling that is possible in the here and now. We recognize the many conditions of happiness that are here and now, more than we could imagine. And when we do so, healing takes place. We can develop the habit of happiness. Mindfulness requires practice. And that's why Thich Nhat Hanh created his network of monastic-led, that means led by the monks, monastic-led mindfulness retreat centers. And so I want to take you with me to Magnolia Grove in Mississippi. I visited there 3 times over the past few years. I was there in 2016 by myself. I was there in 2018 with one of you. You're about to see who. And I was also there in 2021 together with Jürgen. The photos I'm going to show you now will give a sense of what it is like to choose to go on a weekend retreat. People from all over the world can register for retreats for a day or a weekend or longer. I met people there who were staying for a series of weeks or even several months. So all of that is possible. The pictures I'm going to show you today, come from all 3 of my trips. So they're just selected to tell a story from the various different trips. And I tried not to disturb the environment too much when I took pictures here and there. So it's not like a documentary where you're really seeing the monks straight in their faces all the time. I didn't do that. It was just in moments when it probably wouldn't disturb people too much to take a picture. Okay, so when you arrive at Magnolia Grove. And actually the way you get there is to drive south to Nashville, then over to Memphis, and from Memphis you drop south, and you drive to Batesville, Mississippi. And you should prepare your nav system, maybe 2 of them, or a printed map really well, because as you get closer and closer to the monastery, it may be you're in such a remote part of Mississippi that your nav system stops working. So I would recommend being prepared. When you arrive there, you see this, and it says, "I have arrived. I am home." This script is the calligraphy that is typical of Thich Nhat Hanh himself. So he did a lot of calligraphy, and today you can even still buy his calligraphy or calligraphy like it or reproductions. So when I first saw this sign, I took it really literally. I'm like, great, you know, I have arrived, I'm home. Isn't that nice? The monks get to see that every time they get there. But it's actually also metaphorical. Because when you are mindful, you are at home in yourself. You are not running, or running neural paths of anger and resentment and whatever it is that's not good for you. You're choosing to be fully present in the moment. So when people are fully present, they can say, "I have arrived. I am home." So here I am, the next slide, not I, but ready to go on one of the trips. And I invited Lisa Dal Porto to join me. And so we decided to take her really big pickup truck. So here she is coming to my house to pick me up. And then we drove to the monastery. And once you arrive there, it is a large property with multiple buildings on it. And this is just looking from that sign that says, "I have arrived, I am home," looking towards one of the buildings where they have their cafeteria. And inside the cafeteria is a whiteboard, and that's where they put the schedule for each day of a retreat. And so this right here is a typical schedule for a day during retreat. You'll notice wake up is at 5 a.m. Okay. The accommodations are very modest. It's kind of like dorm or hostel housing, as in simple bunk beds in maybe multiple people to a room, or you could have an individual room probably if you request it. I think in 2021, they were just 1 person per room because we're still in kind of a COVID mode. And so the day here, yeah, there's, I'll show you in a moment the big bell that wakes you up, and then you walk to meditation. The first time I came, it was in March, and it was complete darkness at that point in time. And we walked then to the meditation hall and had our guided sitting meditation, and then a walking meditation, then breakfast all together in silence. All of this is in silence, no talking. Then there's a working meditation. And so even guests were invited to perform some task. Most recently, I was working with other guests to clean the bathrooms in the dorm, which were in fantastic shape anyway. That was not arduous, but we did that. Then lunch, and then there's quiet time, individual time, and then wake up, it says, and various other meetings, and then 9:30 p.m. noble silence, so no more talking. And this large pagoda here, it houses the bell that they use to wake people up in the morning. And so there's the bell, and I don't know, maybe someone here knows the technical name of the thing used to ring the bell, but there's a monk there, standing there, and he's just pushing it in a rhythmic way into the bell, and you can hear it in the distance. It's just an awesomely beautiful way to wake up. It's really, really amazing. And you simply get up and get dressed and go to the meditation hall. Here's the inscription on the bell. And bells are really important at the meditation center. Every time a bell rings, any kind of bell, everyone stops what they're doing, puts things down, and just sits there in mindfulness for maybe a minute. So in the cafeteria, there's actually a phone in the office next to it. If you hear the phone ring, everybody puts down their fork and sits in meditation for a moment. So the bell brings us back to ourselves, brings us back to mindfulness. When the clock chimes, everybody stops what they're doing and has a moment of mindfulness. Then, this next photo shows from the dining hall the approach to the meditation hall. And so we're looking across the field, and one of the monks are Vietnamese, by the way. These are Vietnamese monks. There are women there. There are also men there. They all have their heads shaved, and they're all wearing pretty much the same sort of chocolate brown robes for the most part. That's what they're wearing. They also wear these straw hats to protect them from the sun when there's strong sun. So this is the view across towards the meditation hall. And then inside the meditation hall, I stepped in there when nothing was happening between events there, and you can see there's beautiful woodwork, windows all around, so that when you're sitting there during meditation in the early morning hours or in the evening, you're just watching the light change, trying to keep your head empty. Sometimes the monk who's leading it says, "Stop your monkey mind. Stop your monkey mind." And this is a little sort of altar-type space to the left of the front of the room. Another calligraphy there by Thich Nhat Hanh, or in his style. There are lots of orchids there. Here is a photo taken, I'm not sure if this was lunch or breakfast. In some ways, they're quite similar. So at meal times, you were invited to go through the line and pick what you want from all the food that's put out. The monks, as I understand it, they eat vegan. So there was a huge range of vegetables, mostly vegetables, and then other kinds of food, and some broth and greens. And it seemed really, really healthy. So really good food there. This photo was taken during what they call walking meditation. So during the mindfulness retreats, you learn different kinds of mindfulness practice. There's sitting meditation. There's also walking meditation. This is a break during walking meditation. So the whole group began at the retreat center or at the meditation hall and walked slowly. And when I mean that, they walk like this. So you have this confrontation, right, with yourself. Like, I'm always going somewhere. I'm always going to the next thing. I've got a schedule, right? And then you're slowing down and focusing on every step and being mindful in the moment. And it takes an effort. It takes always returning to noticing what's happening in your head and being mindful about it. And what's really neat also about being at the monastery is there are opportunities to talk to the monks individually. Like it might be, so for instance, I said the meals are silent for basically the first 20 minutes, and then a bell chimes and everyone is silent, and then they're allowed to talk among themselves a little bit. So you can talk to the monks at that time when talking is okay in the second part of the meal, or it could be between events. And so Jürgen found that he allowed me to share. He found he was really struggling with how do I be mindful in my walking meditation. And there was a monk named Brother Action. Brother Action was originally from Holland. Yeah, and he So he and Jürgen connected, and Brother Action helped him think about how to do that more effectively and how to grow in his experience of being meditative. This path, it's a paved path to a garden. It's also a path for walking meditation, and it's a location that is intended to commemorate the relationship between Martin Luther King and Thich Nhat Hanh. So there are statues there of the two of them together. There's also a plaque that talks about them and their work together for peace. The next photo shows one of the nuns' dorms. So this is where the nuns live, and I have not been in their accommodation. That's their private space. On the second floor, there's a smaller meditation room. On one of my retreats, the women were invited to go have a meditation with women in that second floor room in this building. It's really beautiful, and you can sit outdoors in any of the seating areas, and you can walk around the property and just explore it a little bit. So that's what I did. This picture shows their gardens and their greenhouses. They grow a lot of their own food. So I'm thinking a lot of the food that you eat is just, it's been in the garden hours before you ate it, right? Super fresh. This is the front of the meditation hall, and things are set up. I think this was one of the retreats. It was a special weekend honoring Buddha's birthday. And so on Sunday morning, there was a special ceremony called Bathing the Baby Buddha. And so a space was set up in front of the meditation hall, and with lots and lots of flowers. And there's the Buddha. And then there were huge pots full of water with wooden ladles and petals floating in them, as you see here. And each person was invited to line up and to have the opportunity to scoop some of the water and the petals and bathe the baby Buddha by letting that water and the petals run over the baby Buddha. The people you see here, these you can see, and I think the monks are wearing orange because it's a special occasion, but normally every day they wear the chocolate brown. And then people in the bluish gray here in the foreground, they probably have driven from Memphis for the day. They might be Vietnamese, but in any case, they have some sort of relationship with the monastery, and they might be more regular attendees. That was my guess about that. And then other visitors from Memphis for the day or from the area. Inside the meditation hall, they use, there's a drum. That drum is huge, right? It's if I curled up, it's about as big as I am. And then a meditation bowl that's like singing bowl, right? That big. So this was after the meditation, and people were working together to put away the cushions and the mats, and I just took a few pictures of those. And here is after the special ceremony, some of the visitors taking pictures, and then also after the special ceremony, some of the monks looking at pictures and talking with each other. And so let me see. Then, since it was Buddha's birthday, there was a special meal. We ate outdoors, and a birthday cake for Buddha. Here is one more photo. Just a really pretty location. I cannot say enough about how wonderful it was to be away from my technology, away from schedule. I think I have a nice apartment, but it's full of stuff that makes me think about things, right? And so here you're just in nature and can just practice emptying your mind. The experience is very cleansing, very relaxing, very uplifting. So I really do recommend it. So I want to say the sources that I used for this talk today, they were in part a special issue of the magazine Lion's Roar. Okay, that's a magazine of Buddhism, and Matt is going to give us a reading. And what Jürgen read and what Matt is going to read came out of this special commemorative issue, remembering the life and the legacy of Thich Nhat Hanh. Another really good source for you, if you want to learn a little bit more, is the website of Plum Village itself. It's plumvillage.org. And I'm happy to let you know there's an app for all of this. And it's free. And you can start today. So, and you can hear Thich Nhat Hanh speaking also. So that's very interesting as well. So that's what I have to share with you. And I hope you feel like you had an introduction to mindfulness, to what it can offer you, to the life and legacy of Thich Nhat Hanh, and you have a sense of what it might be like if you choose to go on a retreat at the monastery. And I am available to answer questions either now or after the service as our service associate deems correct. And I also want to recommend this book. If you decide to go on retreat there, I would recommend reading this book, Happiness, beforehand. It is in the series Essential Mindfulness Practices. It will give you a sense of why they do the things they do and what the thinking is or the mindfulness is behind that. So, all right. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Yes, are there any questions or comments? Yeah.
How would you say the first time you went, that experience changed you and made you want to go back?
I think I felt really peaceful, and it gave me a chance. The feeling I had was that I sort of stepped back from the urgency of my work and stuff that was happening in family, and just could be quiet and just enjoy the moment. And it seemed like life wasn't rushing by so fast because I could experience being in the moment. And I would say the feeling was also, it felt to me sort of like cleansed, maybe. And I'm just saying that honestly, that's how it felt, and not in, yeah. So that made me want to go back. It made me want to share it with Lisa. It made me want to share it with Jürgen. It made me want to share it with you all. Yeah.
I would like to know whether you got the feel, as you were reading the material, whether Buddhism is a religion or a practice.
The way that question is formulated has a real kind of global aspect to it. I'm going to say that I learned about mindfulness as a practice, and that is a part of Buddhism. And so I think what I really took away is that human beings, because of the way we are and the way we think, which I shared with you, we need the practice. We need to keep coming back to ourselves. So that's what I can say from my knowing.
Okay, so I've got monkey mind right now. Anytime somebody puts a microphone in front of my face, something like that. But I actually wanted to know about mindfulness, because right now I have my mind very much set on something that's coming up that's going to hurt me, painful, surgery. And I was wondering, what do you understand when you're trying to be mindful and your present is not so great? I just wondered if you had anything. Of course, if you don't, that's fine too.
When you're trying to be mindful and your presence?
Your present situation is not good. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to be enjoying the moment. What if the moment's not so great?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think one of the reasons that mindfulness appeals to me is because we have an opportunity to examine our own meaning making. And this is a moment in which this learning that I presented today relates very closely to other training I talked about in February and landmark education and that type of thing. So I think you have the opportunity to be with the meaning making that is occurring in you. And so the meaning making you just relayed is, it's going to be painful. The meaning making you could question is it painful right now? Will it be less painful after the surgery? Am I fortunate to be able to get the procedure I need so that I have less pain? So those are some questions you could ask from my limited knowledge and experience.
I'd be very curious to hear if you had noticed any connection between your experiences there and your wonderful artwork.
I do think that when I can be intentional about clearing my head from rational thinking and from worry, that I believe I can invite inspiration. And the German word is Einfall, the ideas fall in, as if from the universe. So I think I can be mindful about inviting my creativity and not letting it get crowded out by the hamster wheel of my brain and the busyness of life. So yeah, thank you for that question, Terry.
I've been looking forward to your talk. I'm actually going there next month, so it's great to see the pictures and get a sense of. But I knew you mentioned the book. I wanted to know what else you might recommend for somebody who's never been, and just to get the full amount of that out of the experience and help, kind of get in the habit of being mindful a little bit more before I get there.
Like I said, this book, Happiness, it explains some of the practices. It also talks about the 5 mindfulness trainings. So the monastery will ask you to be sure you've read that and you agree to abide by those. So if you're going next month, I think this is a good amount to read by then. There's not anything else I would recommend. I did bring another book. This is another of his books, and they do have a bookstore there where you can buy tons of more stuff, and also children's books and your own singing bowl and that kind of thing. This one is called Beginning Anew. And it says 4 steps to restoring communication. So if there's someone in your life with whom communication has broken down, or some misunderstanding has occurred, or the quality of the relationship is just extremely poor, and you want more than that for yourself in that relationship, this is meant to be a guide to that. So a small book. This one is actually not by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's by someone close to him. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name, but it's by one of the sisters. I think there was another question here.
Okay, and maybe one more after that.
So thank you so much for sharing about this. I have a question for you on your daily practice. And if you have one, and 2, if you do, would you share that with us?
Yeah, so I'm gonna answer you really honestly, Amy. I do not have a daily practice per se, but today a practice occurred. And that was at the breakfast table, when you're gonna ask me a particular question, and the way I answered the question was not very mindful of me. And so I had a moment which I needed to examine my own reaction and to bring more compassion to the conversation and to apologize. And you could say it was a small thing, but a small thing that hurts is hurtful. And so One of the things that you learn through the readings, and it might be in this book, it might be in another book, was when a misunderstanding occurs, you want to go to that person and you want to reach a better understanding. And I think we did that. So, yeah. So that's my answer. Not every day, but today, yes. Today. Yep. Anybody else?
I might just comment on what Laura was saying about that monk, brother action. So my problem was during the walking meditation, I always drifted off, and I was angry about myself, that I could not focus on it. And I was telling him that I was angry about myself. And he more or less just, said, don't be happy. Happy about acknowledging that your mind wandered off. And, give yourself a clap on the shoulder and go back and repeat and repeat and repeat. That was just a 2-minute conversation, but it changed so much for me, knowing that I shouldn't be angry about wandering off. I should be happy that I acknowledge it.
One of the things that happens at the monastery is that there are moments when the group sings together. And what we were presented with at Magnolia Grove were very simple songs. And during the postlude today, you will have an opportunity to hear one of those. It's a very simple song and melody. You can stay during that time. The words should be on the screen, and you can sing along if you would like. And it's a little bit of an earworm. You may take it with you into your week. So that's at the end of the service.
Let's thank Laura again for her presentation. This congregation and the work we do is supported by the voluntary generosity of all that contribute. I do believe today is the third Sunday, and the donation today will go to Room at the Inn. It is an organization that houses homeless people in the cold winter months and provides a meal and a warm place to sleep. As we enjoy the music, the offering will be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. We thank you for these gifts. May we use them wisely in the service of our congregation and our community. We would like to take a moment to thank all those volunteers who made this service possible today. Today's coordinator was Laura. She planned the whole experience for us. Thank you, Laura. And Eliza Norman is our accompanist. And of course, Matt is behind the curtain. Thank you all for sharing your time and talent with our community. Thank you. All right. Yeah. As part of our responsible search for truth and meaning, we encourage thoughtful discourse. After the service, you're invited to join in discussion here at the church, in the fellowship hall, or outside. Community news. I think there's a holiday coming up this Thursday. A lot of us have signed up to bring a dish to the Thanksgiving dinner. I believe it starts about at 2 o'clock, and everyone is welcome. Is there anyone else that has an announcement that I'm not aware of? All righty, I'll see you there. If you have questions about Unitarian Universalism or about joining this congregation, please speak to someone on our membership team. You can raise your hand if you would, or our president, John Downing, who knows all things. You can find out more by looking for our information online on Facebook or YouTube or in the bulletin board, like in the old days. We have one last hymn, number 131, Love Will Guide Us. If you will stand if you're willing and able. Matt Foraker will give our final reading.
So Hosan Allen Sanaug is an abbot of the Berkeley Center and director of the Clearview Project, which does human rights and humanitarian work in Myanmar, Bangladesh, and India. And as Laura mentioned in the magazine that was published after his death, he said he had some words about Thai Nhat Hanh. And some people say Thai instead of ticked, but that's that word in front. Yeah, go ahead.
So tik means reverend. It's a title. And Thai means teacher.
Teacher.
So people who learned from him called him Thai. Yeah.
Thank you. I didn't know that first part. Okay. Hosan uses Thai. So these are his words. Thai Nhat Hanh wore the simple brown robes of a monk. He walked and spoke mindfully, but the strength of steel lay just below his placid service. It made him a kind of Buddhist revolutionary. As director of the Buddhist Peace Fellowship, I organized a talk by Thai in April 1991 in Berkeley, in the immediate aftermath of the first US war against Saddam Hussein's Iraq and the police beating of African-American Rodney King in Los Angeles. I was struck by Thai's comments that night. He spoke of his deep anger over the war and the beating of King. Both triggered to him painful memories of the war in Vietnam and the brutal ignorance of US oppression there. He said he had considered canceling his American tour with all its retreats and Dharma events. His words revealed to me that he wasn't an unreachable saint, but a man with raw feelings. Then he shared that he'd meditated on his own reactivity and realized that he had to continue his tour as planned, because these oppressors and victims The police, Rodney King, US soldiers, Iraqis, and all their government leaders were neither different nor distant from him. This insight about interdependence, famously described in his poem, Call Me By My True Names, is what I have learned from Thich Nhat Hanh. It has infused how he taught and walked in the world. But it was not a special vision of his own. Such insight appears to spiritual leaders of all lands and all ages. It comes from poets and seers. As Walt Whitman wrote, I am large, I contain multitudes. Let us strive to be like Thich was. That is, let us strive to be truly human, our true selves.
We now bid farewell to those who have joined us online. We hope you found this service meaningful, and we invite you to join us again. Be well and go in peace.